My name was Ahmed. I was a teacher of the Quran, revered in a rigid Islamic school in Saudi Arabia. I had dedicated my life to upholding the traditions and laws, instilling obedience in my students, and wearing the facade of unwavering faith. Yet inside, I was crumbling, teetering on the edge of a spiritual abyss. For years, I carried a silent burden, a creeping emptiness that whispered doubts I dared not share. And then, everything changed in an instant. One fateful day, after a split-second decision, I found myself in a harrowing car accident, a moment that would lead me not to death, but to something far more profound. A near-death experience drew me into a darkness so thick it suffocated my very soul. It was here, in the vastness of a desolate desert, that I encountered Jesus. His voice, unlike any I had known, pierced through the silence, calling my name with an urgency that ignited a conflagration of truths long buried within me. He revealed an unprovoked war, a spiritual battle transcending my understanding of faith and existence, illuminating how deception wove through the very fabric of our beliefs. What I once regarded as absolute was suddenly a thin veil cloaking the depths of my soul's true yearning for something beyond the constraints of religious doctrine. In that moment, I felt the weight of a hidden reality, a conspiracy against the very essence of humanity itself, exposing the chains that had bound me for so long. As I awakened from that life-altering encounter, the fear of rejection clawed at my insides. My community, my family, how would they react to the heretic I had become? The haunting sense of betrayal gnawed at me, yet I was driven by a powerful revelation. My experience was not merely a personal crisis, but a call to action, a mission to pierce through the darkness enveloping countless souls, beckoning them toward the light I had discovered. While battling the suffocating grip of solitude, I embarked on a secret quest for truth, diving into the very scriptures I had once taught. I watched testimonies of others who had dared to step away from religious bondage. With each story, a flicker of hope ignited within me, stoking the fire of my transformation even as I grappled with the impending loss of my identity and familial ties. If you sense the stirrings of truth within you, comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know how far this message reaches. And if you love Jesus and seek deeper revelations about his truth, subscribe now to Truth from Beyond. This is just the beginning of a journey that could change everything. In the rigid confines of the Islamic school where I taught, adherence to tradition was absolute, creating an atmosphere thick with fear and reverence. My name is Farid, and for years I diligently instructed my students in the Quran, always emphasizing the importance of loyalty to our faith. But beneath the surface of my teachings lay a growing discontent, a feeling that something about our rigid beliefs stifled both inquiry and individuality. Each day felt like a performance, one where I had to suppress any thoughts or doubts that dared to emerge. It was a world that prized conformity and obedience over understanding and exploration. During one particularly poignant lesson, something shifted within me. As I recited verses meant to instill fear of divine retribution, a voice broke through the monotony of my thoughts. It was Jesus. I couldn't comprehend how I could hear him amid the teachings I was so entrenched in. The moment felt surreal, as if the walls of the classroom had fallen away, and I was submerged in a cosmic light that radiated love and acceptance. The clarity enveloped me in warmth, contrasting sharply with the constraints I had known. It was then that I understood. I was being called to something beyond what I had ever imagined. What followed my encounter with Jesus was a series of profound revelations that shook the very foundation of my understanding. He illuminated truths about our world, about power structures, the hidden agendas of the elite that manipulated belief systems for control. I saw how the narratives we were taught served to perpetuate a cycle of deception, fostering division among people who should be united in their quest for love and understanding. It was like a veil had been lifted, allowing me to see the spiritual war raging just beneath the surface. These insights propelled me into turmoil, forcing me to reconcile my commitment to my teachings with the inescapable reality of the truth I had encountered. The emotional conflict was a storm within my spirit. I felt a growing urgency to share this truth, yet overwhelming fear held me back. I worried about the repercussions of exposing the hidden deceptions that had been interwoven into my life's work. The very students I had guided for years now became the focus of my internal struggle. How could I reconcile this newfound awakening with the stringent beliefs I had once imposed on them? It felt wrong to lead them down a path that no longer felt authentic to me. Doubts crept in, and I questioned if I would become a target for condemnation, the very thing I had taught them to fear. As days turned into nights, the voice of Jesus became an anchor, reminding me that I had to act in faith. I began seeking a way to bridge the gulf between my previous life and the one that awaited me. My experience became a catalyst for growth and transformation, not just for myself but for the lives I touched. I envisioned a community where ideas flowed freely, where people could express doubts without fear of retribution. It was a daunting vision, but I could feel the stirrings of the awakening around me. I needed to create a safe space, a realm where others could come together to experience the love and acceptance that Jesus had so miraculously revealed to me. Every conversation became a chance to challenge the status quo, to confront the hidden deceptions that had been fed to us. I connected with those willing to explore the truths of our existence, engaging in discussions that flickered with hope and curiosity. It was as if we were slowly dismantling the walls that had confined us, brick by brick. The urgency of our mission pressed on, and I felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier. The battle for awakening was not merely a personal journey. It was a collective effort against the oppression that sought to silence the truth. And with each step toward unity, I realized this was just the beginning of the fight, and the revelation of love and understanding awaited beyond the shadows. As a Quran teacher respected by my students, I had built a life rooted in tradition. My name is Ahmed, and at 35, I found myself caught in a web of expectations, not just from my community, but from my own family. They looked to me as a model of unwavering devotion, yet beneath the surface, I wrestled with an emotional distance that created a chasm between my public persona and private struggles. Each day I recited verses with fervor, but inside, I felt a growing spiritual crisis gnawing at my soul. The very teachings that once brought me peace now seemed like chains binding me to a reality I couldn't fully embrace. The turning point came unexpectedly during a routine lesson. As I spoke about the importance of devotion and submission to God, a voice cut through the air, startling me to my core. It was Jesus. In that moment, everything around me faded, and time stood still. I was filled with an overwhelming sense of presence, as if the universe had shifted to reveal a hidden truth. That singular moment became a pivotal point in my life, forcing me to confront the dichotomy between the rigorous adherence to my faith and the new, soft light of revelation that flooded my spirit. It was an awakening that shattered my previously unchallenged beliefs. Jesus began revealing to me the truths I had long overlooked, the hidden agendas that manipulate our understanding of faith and spirituality. I saw a world where leaders exploited beliefs for power and control, perpetuating deception among the masses. The elite, it seemed, thrived on our ignorance and division, using faith as a tool to maintain their grip on society. It was a harsh revelation, but in his light, I recognized the spiritual war that raged beneath the surface of our existence. The world was a battlefield, and I had unwittingly been part of a system that stifled individual thought and genuine connection with God. As I emerged from that experience, I felt a new urgency within me to break free from the chains of expectation and conformity. The emotional struggle was palpable. On one hand, I felt a fierce desire to share these revelations with my community, people who were also caught in this insidious deception. On the other hand, I faced the stark reality of potential rejection. I could imagine their anger and disbelief, the accusations of heresy flying as I began to question the very foundations of our shared faith. This internal conflict became a backdrop to my daily life, fueling both fear and determination as I sought a way to articulate the awakening I had experienced. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in this journey of discovery, engaging in heartfelt prayer and searching the scriptures with a new lens. I sought out fellow seekers, individuals eager to explore the truth that lay beyond the confines of tradition. As we gathered to share our stories, the energy shifted into something transformative. I felt the stirring of a collective awakening, a shared resolve to challenge the narratives that had long dictated our understanding of spirituality. Each story exchanged became a catalyst for growth, a push against the boundaries that had constrained us for far too long. The urgency to act was apparent. Our voices needed to rise against the deception that had held sway over so many lives. There was a powerful bond forming, a new community founded on love and truth, blossoming even as the shadows loomed over us. As I bowed my head in prayer, I felt an unwelcome emptiness wash over me. My name is Ahmed, and for years I served as a dedicated Quran teacher, guiding my students in the teachings of Islam. But lately, something within me began to shift. The prayers that once filled me with a sense of purpose now felt hollow, and the fervor of my devotion dimmed. It was as if I was reciting words without truly connecting to their meaning. Each prayer I offered began to leave me more troubled than before, echoing the inner conflict that was quietly brewing. Recurring dreams invaded my nights, vivid visions that left me unsettled and questioning my very faith. In these dreams, familiar faces morphed into strangers, and places once cherished turned into landscapes of confusion and doubt. I often awoke in a cold sweat, grappling with a lingering sense of disconnection from a belief system I had devoted my life to. The dreams seemed to be urging me to wake up from a slumber, to confront the truths hiding beneath the surface of my reality. I couldn't understand why, but every time I closed my eyes, it felt like I was on the verge of a revelation. Yet the fear of what that revelation might entail gripped me tightly. As the days unfolded, my internal turmoil grew. I found myself wandering through my routines, feeling like a ghost in my own life. The expectations of my family and community weighed heavily on my shoulders, a constant reminder of the unwavering devotion they anticipated from me. Yet the deeper I delved into my own soul, the more I sensed a chasm widening between my external role as an imam and the truth that was urging me to break free. I often found myself questioning the role of religion in my life, wondering if it had become a barrier to connecting with God rather than a bridge. In a moment that changed everything, I confronted my fears during a particularly intense prayer session. As I poured my heart out, daring to express my doubts aloud, I felt an immense wave of warmth envelop me. Suddenly, I heard a voice that cut through the silence. Jesus. The moment was surreal, as if the air had shifted, releasing a flood of divine love and understanding. In that instant, the revelations began to pour in. I saw glimpses of the hidden agendas that manipulate the faithful, the deception that runs deep within spiritual institutions. It was a harsh awakening that shattered my previously unchallenged beliefs and exposed the spiritual war raging around me. What I was shown was both beautiful and terrifying. I could see how deeply embedded the manipulation by the elite was, how it utilized religion as a tool to control and divide. The awakening I had experienced became a call to arms, a realization that I needed to share this newfound truth, even at the risk of losing everything I had known. The weight of responsibility settled upon me, intertwining with my emotions, igniting a fierce determination to reach others. I was propelled by an urgent need to free myself from the chains of deception, to step into a light that promised liberation for myself and others who felt similarly lost in the darkness. The battle ahead would not be easy, but I knew I had been chosen to confront this war head-on, seeking the truth that would redefine my life forever. It was a typical afternoon when the accident occurred, an ordinary day that would lead to my extraordinary awakening. My name is Ahmed, and I spent years as a devoted Quran teacher, instilling faith and wisdom into the hearts of my students. I had always believed in the power of our teachings, yet underneath the surface, a growing sense of unease had been gnawing at me. I often found myself grappling with doubts during prayers, feeling an emptiness I couldn't shake. On that day, as I drove home, my mind was consumed by these thoughts, and then everything changed in an instant. The crash was violent and sudden. I remember the moments before impact, the fleeting sense of alarm, and then darkness engulfed me. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in an endless, dark desert, disoriented and alone. The air was thick, heavy, with an unshakable weight. It felt like I had crossed some invisible threshold into an alternate reality. The silence was palpable, but soon, from that stillness, a brilliant light pierced through the gloom. I could feel a presence, and when I looked up, I saw Jesus standing before me, radiating warmth and unconditional love. This encounter was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Jesus spoke to me, not in words but in a connection that transcended language. He began to reveal truths that had been buried beneath the layers of dogma I had accepted for so long. I saw visions of the spiritual war raging around us, the hidden agendas of those in power, political leaders and religious elites who manipulated the faithful for their gain. What I had naively seen as a clear path to righteousness began to unravel before my eyes, revealing the webs of deception woven into the very fabric of my faith. The power structures that sought to control, to instill fear, became starkly visible. While I stood there, Jesus showed me the broader implications of our spiritual battles, how they echoed through time, affecting societies and sowing division among people. I grasped the urgency of awakening, not just for myself, but for everyone trapped in this cycle of fear and ignorance. The love I felt from him filled me with hope, a deep-seated belief that liberation was possible. Yet the truths he revealed were also burdensome, awakening me to the reality that I had been a part of something that cut against the very essence of spiritual connection. The revelation was both enlightening and painful, forcing me to confront the chasm that had formed between my identity as a teacher and the truth I now understood. As I drifted between consciousness and this otherworldly experience, I felt the weight of my responsibilities pressing down on me. How could I return to my life after witnessing such profound truths? I felt a fire ignite within, a determination to share what I had learned, even if it meant walking away from everything I'd ever known. The fear of rejection from my community loomed large, but the love and wisdom I had encountered urged me onward. I realized that this awakening was not a solitary path. It was a call to rally others against the deceptions embedded in our belief systems. And in that moment, I knew my journey was just beginning. I was destined to confront the spiritual war that awaited beyond the darkness. When I regained consciousness, the world felt like a different place, one not entirely welcoming. My name is Ahmed, a humble Quran teacher who had devoted his life to guiding others in faith. Yet after my near-death experience, I was met with furious rejection from my family and community. It had only been a few days since I encountered Jesus in that profound spiritual awakening, yet already I found myself branded a heretic, an outsider in a world that had once embraced me. The disapproval was palpable, like a cold wind slicing through the warmth of my past. The moment I stepped back into reality, I was met with hostility. My family didn't understand the transformation I had undergone. How could they? They viewed my awakening as a betrayal, a denouncement of everything they held sacred. Their faces twisted in disappointment and anger, words flew like arrows, piercing my heart. The emotional burden of their disdain weighed heavily on me. I felt clamped in a vice of guilt and fear, the burden of alienation pressing down harder than I could bear. I realized just how intensely the separation from those I loved would impact my journey, plunging me into profound spiritual loneliness. Each day I walked through the streets I once knew, there was a growing ache in my chest. The same places that had once brought comfort now felt foreign and hostile. I longed for connection, yet every interaction was overshadowed by the shadow of my new truth. I had witnessed revelations that shattered the facade of our faith, uncovering hidden agendas spun by the elite that manipulated our beliefs for power. This insight pulled me deeper into conflict, knowing that while I had been granted clarity, it had come at a steep price. I could either return to the feigned devotion of my past or embrace the truth that now coursed through me. During my quiet moments, I wrestled with feelings of self-doubt. I questioned whether I had made the right choice by stepping away from a comforting yet constricting tradition. Was I truly meant to be a voice against the deceptions that had clouded our understanding of spirituality? As I sat in the silence of my thoughts, reflections of Jesus' teachings swirled within me. He came to reveal love, acceptance, and a call to awaken from the sleep of ignorance. The spiritual war one had come to know was all around me. Fear, division, and oppression entangled the hearts of those still entrapped by the same hidden agendas I had seen. Finding solace in my prayers to Jesus helped to dissipate the overwhelming grief. I began connecting with other seekers, individuals eager to explore the truths I had uncovered. Together we quietly sought understanding, our conversations becoming a lifeline amidst the turmoil. My journey was no longer just about me. It became about others as well, those who had wrestled with their own spiritual battles. Each story exchanged acted as a beacon of hope, an acknowledgement that while religion can create strong bonds, true freedom lies in embracing the profound truths of our existence. The urgency to share this awakening intensified, a desperate call against the deceptions that kept so many prisoners to fear. I felt a collective momentum forming, a push against the darkness that surrounded us, and in the depths of that battle, I found my purpose was beginning to unfold. Determined to uncover the truth, I found myself diving into uncharted waters. My name is Ahmed, and as a Quran teacher deeply ensconced in my faith, the journey had always felt clear and guided. But since my encounter with Jesus, my understanding of faith was no longer secure. Each day grew heavier with confusion and doubt, leading me to search for clarity in the depths of my soul. The rejection I faced from my community stung, but rather than retreating, I felt an insatiable urge to explore the very beliefs I once held sacred. This time, I wasn't searching for comfort. I was searching for truth. In secret, I began to explore the Bible, devouring its passages in solitude. I read late into the night, fueled by a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Each verse spoke to me in a way I had never experienced before, igniting a flicker of understanding that had long been dimmed by doubt. Alongside the scriptures, I watched countless videos of former Muslims sharing their testimonies, recounting their journeys of faith and awakening. They spoke of their struggles and doubts, but they also shared the liberation they found in embracing a new, often uncomfortable truth. It was in their stories that I found solace. Their words wrapped around me like a lifeline, urging me to consider my path and the potential for renewal. Yet, a persistent shadow loomed over my new pursuit. As I embraced these revelations, an aching sense of loss grew. I grappled with the potential of losing my identity, my role as a teacher, my place within my family, the very bonds that had shaped my existence. The thought of confronting my loved ones, of telling them that I'd come to see the hidden agendas that manipulated our understanding of faith, filled me with dread. The fear of being branded a traitor weighed heavily on my heart. I longed to awaken others to the truth I had discovered, yet the cost felt insurmountable. Was I willing to sacrifice those I loved for a truth that had fractured my own life? Each day became a battle within my spirit, where the urgency of my awakening clashed with the fear of alienation. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a vast abyss, desperate to leap into the unknown but terrified of what lay ahead. I wrestled with the implications of what I had learned about the spiritual war that raged around us. The manipulation by the elite, the ways in which power distorted faith to divide communities and control masses. Each revelation was a revelation, a dagger to my former beliefs. But the tension coursing through me also served as fuel, motivating me to push further into this restless journey for truth. In this maelstrom of emotions, I began to feel glimpses of hope. The testimonies I had listened to were not just stories of loss. They were also illuminations of hope, resilience, and reawakening. I felt a call to connect with others who felt the same, stirring within their hearts and minds. It became clear that I was not alone in this quest for understanding. As I reached out to fellow seekers, I sensed a building momentum, a collective desire to confront the deceptions that had long kept us shackled. While each of us faced our demons, together we could chart a path through the darkness towards the light of truth. And as that vision crystallized, the journey that began with fear unfolded into one of potential and purpose, one that beckoned me to take the next step into an unknown yet promising future. In the aftermath of my near-death experience, a sense of clarity washed over me. My name is Ahmed, and I had made a life as a Quran teacher, yet everything I believed was shaken to its core. The moment I encountered Jesus during my time in the void revealed to me that my experience was not by chance. It was a divine calling. I felt a deep compulsion to share the spiritual truths I had discovered. No longer could I remain silent, especially not after witnessing the hidden agendas that manipulated faith and stifled the truth. It was now clear to me that I was chosen to be an instrument of awakening, even at the expense of losing everything I held dear. As I assimilated this revelation, the emotional weight of my new understanding deepened. The spiritual war one had sensed for so long suddenly became tangible. I had seen the intricate deceptions employed by those in power, how the elite orchestrated narratives to create division and maintain control over the masses. I realized that I could no longer teach the same lessons I had once imparted to my students, ideas that perpetuated obedience without fostering genuine connection to God. No, the truths I had encountered called for a radical shift in my approach, an awakening from complacency that urged me to confront the darkness head-on. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel the burning need to expose these truths. The stories of those who also encountered revelations haunted me, narratives that mirrored my own struggles. I thought of my family, my community, and the inevitable backlash that awaited me. Would they understand this awakening, or would they view me as a traitor, an outcast? The fear of alienation was a heavy burden to bear, yet I felt a fire igniting within me. If there was a chance to awaken others to the truth I had witnessed, then I had to take that risk. Memories of my past flooded my mind. Moments of devout prayer, the heavy silence of the mosque, the faces of my students eagerly absorbing the teachings I had once believed were absolute. In stark contrast, I now envisioned a world where love, acceptance, and enlightenment could exist free from manipulation. Each day, I felt increasingly compelled to share my experience and the wisdom that emerged from it. The urgency to act ignited an unshakable conviction within me. It was as if Jesus' voice echoed in my heart, reminding me of the importance of the journey ahead. With each passing moment, I felt the burden of his message weighing heavier, yet it instilled a sense of purpose that was unmistakable. I sought connections with others who were also yearning for truth, those who had glimpsed the hidden agendas that govern our lives. Together, we formed a community rooted in a shared pursuit of understanding. As we began to articulate our experiences, a powerful movement took shape, a wave of awakening that threatened to rise against the deceptions of the world. But the more I delved into this new path, the more the voice of fear whispered within me, urging caution. The emotional storm within me pressed on, and I realized the fight for truth had only just begun. From the shadows of despair, I felt a growing light pushing through, and I knew I had to heed its call. In a symbolic act of liberation, I stepped away from everything I once knew. My name is Ahmed, and I had spent years devoted to teaching the Quran, walking the path of a faith that I'd held dear. But after my life-altering experience with Jesus, I felt a profound transformation ignite within me, compelling me to leave my home, adopt a new name, and venture into the unknown. This wasn't just a change of scenery, it was a rebirth, an awakening that represented my renewed identity and the struggle I had endured to achieve freedom. Leaving home was not a decision made lightly. Memories flooded my mind, the laughter of my family, the weight of expectations, the community that had wrapped itself around me like a warm blanket. But that warmth had become stifling, crushing me under the weight of conformity. The spiritual war that I was thrust into became clearer with each passing day. I had glimpsed the deception that lay at the heart of the teachings I had once honored and respected, and it all felt like a dense fog lifting away, revealing the stark landscape of reality beneath. As I ventured beyond the familiar, the journey ahead filled me with both trepidation and excitement. My new name was more than just a title. It was a declaration of my intent to stand against the hidden agendas that manipulate faith and power. The elite often orchestrate the narratives that shape our understanding, using deeply rooted beliefs to instill division and control. It was these revelations that pushed me further into my mission. I felt a responsibility to share the truths I had uncovered, to give voice to those who felt similarly lost in the shadows of deception. In those initial steps toward a new horizon, I often found myself wrestling with doubt. Would anyone care to listen? The fear of losing my family, my community, hung heavily over me. I was acutely aware that each individual I reached out to could represent a link to my past, a connection that might be irrevocably severed in the pursuit of truth. Yet I also felt an undeniable certainty that this was my calling, a need to illuminate the spiritual deception that had ensnared so many, including myself. Every step I took felt both like a retreat from my former life and a march toward a new destiny. In the quiet moments of reflection, I savored the freedom that came with shedding my old identity. No longer confined by expectation, I embraced the urgency of my awakening. It was transformative. I began to see the world through a different lens, one that revealed the intricate dance of manipulation and control. It was painful, illuminating truths that had been hidden in plain sight, but every revelation strengthened my resolve. I was no longer just a teacher of words. I had become a seeker of truth, and as I moved forward, I carried with me the weight of a mission that could change lives. With every step into the unknown, I felt the urge to fight for that truth grow within me, propelling me toward the promise of a brighter future. In the wake of my awakening, a fire ignited within me that I could no longer ignore. My name is Ahmed, and I stood at the crossroads of my life, having walked away from a life filled with the familiar teachings of the Quran. After my encounter with Jesus, I understood that my purpose transcended personal liberation. I felt an urgent calling to evangelize, to support others who had similarly endured the chains of spiritual enslavement. The revelation I had received was not just for me. It was a divine invitation to guide others toward their own awakenings. I started sharing my story, speaking openly about my journey from darkness to light. Each moment felt charged with potential as I reached out to those trapped in the overwhelming sense of despair I once knew. I could see the flickers of hope in their eyes as I spoke of the truths I had discovered, the hidden agendas that the elite had woven into the fabric of our beliefs, the deceptions perpetuated by those who wielded power and influence. I shared the love and wisdom Jesus had imparted to me, hoping to pierce through the veils of fear and confusion that surrounded them. With each person I encountered, my heart ached to see how deeply the spiritual war affected their lives. I met individuals who felt like they had lost everything: their faith, their community, their very sense of self. Yet, in moments of honesty, I witnessed a flicker of recognition in their eyes, a realization that they were not alone in their struggles. It was a delicate balance of emotions, and even when faced with rejection, I pressed on. The urgency of the moment drove me. I knew that every story shared, every connection made, could potentially lead someone closer to the truth. The path was fraught with challenges. As I navigated the repercussions of leaving behind my former life, I experienced the sting of isolation, often confronted by doubts, an echo of the voices that had raised their judgment against me. Yet with every conversation, I felt the growing strength of community surround me. We began to create safe spaces for discussion, where we could unravel the complexities of our spiritual journeys. These gatherings were not just about exchanging stories. They became sanctuaries of healing, as we acknowledged the manipulation that had sought to divide us. As the movement gained momentum, I realized that my awakening was intertwined with the awakening of many. The deeper we delved into the truths of our experiences, the more we connected the dots of deception that plagued our society. We discussed the ramifications of blind obedience and the need for critical thought, a conversation often silenced in the shadows. The urgency to keep pushing for truth surged within me, urging me to stand firm in my belief that a rekindled faith, grounded in love and understanding, could eradicate the fear that had built barriers for too long. I felt an unshakable resolve growing within me, knowing that this was just the beginning of a long journey ahead. Years have passed since I walked away from the life I once knew, and yet the echoes of that choice continue to reverberate within me. My name is Ahmed, and I devote myself fully to my mission, sharing the love and truth I found through my encounter with Jesus. Engaging with my new community, I felt a growing sense of purpose as I recounted my testimony. Each story, adventure, and connection deepened the bonds I formed with others. The spiritual war one once felt so deeply inside, now transformed into a collective battle against the hidden agendas that seek to control and divide us. I have witnessed the power of sharing my revelations, how one personal encounter can spark an awakening in others. With every class one taught, every discussion I facilitated, the urgency of conveying the truth became clearer. I shared the message of love and acceptance while revealing the deceptions that had shadowed my previous life. It was essential for me to convey that my journey was not just about an individual struggle, but echoed a larger universal truth: the need to confront the powers that manipulate faith for their own agenda. Teaching and guiding others became my way of fighting back against those who thrive on division. Still, amid this newfound joy, there lingered a persistent ache, a longing for reconciliation with my family. I held on tightly to hope, praying for a day when they might understand my journey. The thought of having betrayed their trust weighed heavily on me, and the distance between us often felt insurmountable. I lived each day aware that the society that once defined me might never embrace my new beliefs. Yet I also recognized that my responsibility to seek truth demanded courage. I was a messenger now, driven by love but challenged by the shadows of what I had left behind. As I connected with others who shared similar stories, the community began to flourish. We shared experiences, insights, and understandings that transcended the barriers once placed upon us. The urgency of our mission became contagious, inspiring even those who were hesitant at first to join the conversation. Together, we began to dismantle the scaffold of deception that had kept us divided. Those who experienced similar revelations found refuge in the idea that they weren't alone in their awakening. Each interaction felt like a chain link being forged, binding us together in a fight against the overarching control exerted by those in power. I've realized that my journey is as much about the connections we build as it is about the truths we discover. As our community grows, I see the potential for real change, not just for ourselves, but for the larger society struggling under the weight of falsehoods. The laughter and fellowship remind me why I stepped onto this path in the first place. Yet, the challenge remains ever present as I remain vigilant against the ongoing spiritual war. With every gathering, every shared story, I'm reminded of both the risks and rewards of this awakening. It is a fight worth continuing, with the hope that one day it may also pave the way for healing and understanding with my family. The journey is ongoing, and I feel the pull of my purpose more profoundly than ever before. Now that you've walked with me through my story, I want to pause for a moment and ask you something. Have you ever felt a whisper deep in your spirit, an urge to question the world around you? a pull towards something greater than yourself, something that transcends the confines of accepted beliefs? Because underneath the surface of our everyday lives, there lies an undeniable truth. We are all part of a larger tapestry, woven by the hands of divine love and understanding. Embracing my awakening from a life bounded by rigid teachings, I realized that my experience was more than just personal. It was a call for all of us to awaken from spiritual slumber. The truths I encountered during my near-death experience unveiled a fierce spiritual war, one that rages silently around us, cloaking the longing for connection, understanding, and love. We are not merely passive observers in this war. We are active participants, wielding the power to challenge the deceptions that keep us bound, confused, and fearful. So I want to hear from you. What truths have emerged in your life that have reshaped your beliefs? Have you had moments where you felt the divine calling you to a greater understanding? Share your experiences in the comments below as I read every word and yearn to connect with the journey of each of you. Together, we can transform our shared struggles into a beacon of hope and understanding for others still entangled in the shadows. If this message resounded within you, don't walk away without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and hitting that notification bell. The path we're on is just beginning, and the revelations we'll uncover together in the future could shift your perspective even further, leading to a deeper sense of purpose and connection that you may have never imagined. In our next video, we'll explore another transformative story that reflects the profound power of awakening, a journey that intertwines spirituality with the struggle for truth. I'm Ahmed, and I deeply appreciate your presence here with me. Remember, together we illuminate the dark corners of our existence, and in truth, we find our freedom.